In the spirit of Halloween, paranormal or not, what is the scariest, creepiest or most unsettling experience of your life? I was a 15-year-old kid coming home from school on a public bus. This guy gets on, probably around 50, and sits in the seat in front of me. He started to recommend a book that he had read in prison, which had me on alert because I'd never met someone who had been to prison. This guy asked me where I was getting off and I said X. He said same, but I heard him asking for a ticket to Y when he got on the bus, so then I was nervous. When I stood up to get off, he followed me and got off next to me. My usual route was straight down an alleyway when I get off the bus, but I thought fuck that. Started walking towards a shop and got my phone out of my pocket to call my mum to pick me up from there. Before the phone was even fully out of my pocket, this guy sprinted across the road and ran down an alleyway. Never saw him again, but never forgotten it either. Fuck knows what he was planning to do, 15-year-old me. I had a nightmare of my dad walking towards me with his arms open and light behind him. He didn't want to go without me. He was perfectly healthy but died the very next day in a home accident. I had another nightmare years later that my fiancé at the time was in a boat going down. I witnessed him gulping the water like air, struggle then die. Not even a month later, he was lost at sea, body never recovered. I am terrified every single time I dream something dreadful. Knock on wood, no death dreams in about 9 years. A few months ago, I fell asleep on my couch beside the balcony door. In my dream I saw myself standing over my head, slightly bent over and staring at my face. This went on for a while until she finally let out a bone-chilling continuous shriek with her mouth open wide. I jumped/sat up from my dream, tears rolling down my cheeks and my mouth wide open like hers. I quickly looked behind me to see if she was still here, and what I saw made me run to my roommate's room and wake her up. My balcony was wide open with my curtains dancing in the air frantically. I will never forget it. I don't know if something took my form or if it was me watching over myself. We had recently bought a mobile home. Didn't know anything about the previous owners, but it was a steal. The lady wanted it off her property or she would have it demolished. We moved it and did some renovations. One night I was laying in bed when there was a loud door slam. Stomp 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 through the living room. Sounded like work boots. Followed by the door on the other side of the house slam. Banging, loud angry banging fists on the door to outside. I couldn't rationalize or explain what it had been, and I was too scared to move. Afterwards, the house was eerily quiet. I finally calmed down enough to start drifting off to sleep when I heard a loud, creepy breathing and thought to myself, it's just Mr. Barky, my pug is a loud breather, and as I was thinking it to myself I felt a warm breath right in my ear. I jumped out of bed to hit the light, but I tripped over what I thought was my chair. I crawled to the light switch and flipped it up and down, but no lights came on. Still laying on the floor, I pounded on my bedroom door yelling for my brother whose room was across the hall, but nobody came. I got up and went back to my bed and laid there until the sun came up, scared stiff. The next morning I got up to see what I had tripped over, but there was nothing there. Checked the lights, no power. I couldn't tell if it had been real. Maybe someone or something tripped me? The whole event is more of a feeling than a memory. I remember it like it had just happened last night. It's the most scared I have ever felt in my life. Also, pennies. Always hearing change fall nearby on the wood floors and looking down to see pennies on the floor. I come from a small household consisting of just my parents and I. When I was around 12 years old and my dad was out at work, my mom told me she was leaving the house to go down the street and buy some groceries for a while. I was in the living room watching TV and playing with some action figures on our coffee table when she went out. A couple minutes after that I got tired, left my toys on the table, and crashed on the couch a few feet away. A great nap, and 1 hour later I woke up and noticed that all my toys were now scattered on the ground. Everything except one Mechagodzilla action figure, standing in the center of the table, with every arm, leg, tail, and head turned violently backwards. After about 2 minutes of confusion, my mom then unlocks the front door and walks in with 2 arms full of groceries. O_O. We lived in this shitty house in Rockford, Illinois for like a year, and I, as a skeptic of anything paranormal, believe it was haunted. It was in a shit neighborhood, but it was the biggest place we ever lived in after years in apartments, and we didn't live under or above anyone, so whatever. One night my mother and sister were sleeping in the downstairs master. Since my sister refused to sleep in her room, it had the attic door in it, so she regularly slept in my mom's bed. So this one night they claimed the bed rose and woke them up. They told me that morning what happened, and I didn't believe them, thinking it was a dream one of them had and spooked the other when they awoke from said dream. This was the first in a lot of odd occurrences. We had regularly hear what sounded like someone walking and whispering in the middle of the night. My sister and mother refused to go upstairs unless necessary, so I was the only one ever up there. One night I think I was putting some clothes away when all of a sudden I hear something slam against my bedroom door. Needless to say, I almost shit myself and stared at my door for a solid minute before mustering up the courage to check it, and there was nothing there. That was when I was sure this place had some shit going on. After that night I never slept with the light off, and at times I slept in my mom's until we eventually moved out. So there's a mountain range known as Konos separating Poland and the Czech Republic. About 8 years ago, I was coming back from Prague to Wrocław, and missed the last bus from the CZ side, Harakov, to the PL side, Scariest. It was summer, about 7 p.m, so there was still a lot of light. I decided to cross the mountains through a low pass, figured I'd reach Poland before dawn. The journey had been uneventful until about 2 a.m. That's when I started hearing a high-pitched, wailing sound. It sounded a lot like a whale's call. It felt terribly sad and lonely. I started looking around, searching for its source. The moon was high and the sky was clear, so the visibility was really good. I saw it among the trees, about 100 meters from me. It was moving slowly, carefully testing the ground before proceeding. Its siren's call made me shiver. The creature looked like a giant spider with a bat's head placed on a long, thin neck. Its ears were huge, and probably highly sensitive. It turned its head, as if noticing my presence, but it didn't seem to mind me and continued to move slowly and wail. It was about 3 meters long, 5 meters tall. It didn't do anything paranormal except for, well, existing. What I felt wasn't exactly terror, it was more of awe and profound sadness. I remember thinking it might be the last one of its kind, that its calls had been a dying song. After watching it for a few minutes, I proceeded to follow the trail and eventually reached the town of Scariest around 5 a.m. I remember feeling really strange for a couple of days afterwards, as if longing for something impossible. So this happened a few months ago. I'm 15 and it was a week before school started, so I was trying to get back into routine and showering early. Anyways, after I get out of the shower to blow dry my hair, and I'm singing to myself, which I don't do that often. And I hear what sounds exactly like my dad say, "Dawson," and I look in the mirror instinctively and see him just standing there staring at me through the mirror with the door shut behind him and straight serious face. I was singing, so instinctively was embarrassed and blinked, and he was gone. Everything was the same, except what I thought was my dad was gone, and I open the door to ask him about it, and he says he was downstairs the whole time, and I decided that I would use the other shower from now on. Also have had nightmares of people trying to kill me in that bathroom and hiding in there from kidnappers. Spooky. Now that I think of it, I had a dream where there was this blue ghost in my attic above my room, kinda like the blue ghost in Corpse Party, and it was possessing my family while they tried to kill me and causing my mom to kill herself in the dream. Scariest dream I had ever. I wrote it down, and coincidentally enough, in the dream those attempted murderers by my possessed family members were in that bathroom. Sometimes when I walk in my hallways and walk by or shut the door to that bathroom, I will hear noises of something moving. TLDR, spooky bathroom. Probably not creepy for me, but for my mom. The summer before I started high school, my family and I were vacationing my dad's province in the Philippines. My mom wanted to go to her side of the family in a different island. We rarely saw my dad because he was always deployed and he didn't exactly have a good relationship with his father-in-law, so he wasn't about that life. We all stayed on my dad's side. Fast forward a couple months after our vacation, Dad is deployed once again. I grew up sleeping with my mom because she didn't want to sleep alone. So here's what she told me happened one night. I sit up in bed and say Dad's here. My mom, excitedly thinking my dad came home to surprise us, gets up and sees nothing. She asks what I just said. I say, no, your dad's here. Now she's freaking out and asks where, what, why, and she puts me back to sleep. My mom gets a call a few hours later that morning. My grandfather had just died. I didn't remember anything.